Yo, what's going on, everybody? So this is our deal breakdown, our 29th one, and we're back to hitting a groove. So today is going to be Charles. It's your turn to go over a deal. So super excited to see how that deal goes. Is this a recent deal for you, or
Yeah, this one I closed just a couple of weeks ago.
okay? I love
Yep.
it. I love
This,
it.
this,
So if our audience is new, tell them what we're doing here today, Charles.
yeah, so today we are doing another one of our deal breakdowns. Every week we break down a deal from one of our pipelines. So it's a deal that we've closed, funded, sellers paid, we're paid. Any partners that we had have been paid. So we break down from A to Z how we got deals and what the process of closing them was like. So this is number 29. So a lot of
Yep,
deals.
I love it. And so Charles is in Carolina, Virginia, bouncing back and forth, but he is a one man band, does the whole operation from A to Z with some collaboration, but for the most part, A to Z all on his own.
Yep.
And he services the North Carolina market. I am in DFW and I do nationwide dispo. I do no acquisitions, all JV model dispos. So today it's Charles's turn. Next week it'll be my turn. But yeah, super excited. So Charles, let's kick it off. Tell us how you even came across the lead.
Well, Chris, this may come as a surprise to most, but
Yes.
huh?
Can I guess?
Yeah. Why don't you take a guess, man? Why don't you take a guess about
It's
how?
a shot in the dark.
Yeah. Just take a
Shot
shot
in the
at the
dark.
dark about
I
how I
might be wrong, but
this deal, man.
was it a cold call to a vacant out of state or a vacant absentee landlord?
Man, it's like you're in my business or something, or like you know exactly what I do every day. Yes, it was a cold call to an absentee list. The property also was vacant. The homeowner wasn't out of state, but it had been vacant for a while. And it was actually a list, though, that we tapped a long time ago. It wasn't like a current list. So it was a list from, um, it was a list from way back where the guy just still thought he was going to handle it or whatever. And we just, Isaac was calling this particular list for me and got a hold of a guy that was an old lead and didn't want to sell at the time and had come to terms with the fact that he wanted to sell. So
Okay, so I like to get granular, so let's break it down. So a cold call on an absentee vacant. So what does vacant mean?
yeah, so vacant means nobody lives there, right? Like there isn't anybody living in the property.
And what does absentee mean?
Absentee means the person that owns it doesn't live in it. So let's say it was a rental, right? It would still be absentee, but this was absentee and vacant. So the owner doesn't live in it and nobody lives in it. So that's how you get to
Which
absentee.
is which is great motivation, but the way that you can tell if it's an absentee is if their mailing address is different than the property address. So the home you're calling on is 123 Main Street, and you see the owner gets his mail at 234 Main Street.
Yeah.
He's not living in that home. So that means to us as wholesalers, if they did have motivation to sell, it's probably going to be an easier transaction because they don't have to pack up and move. There's probably no emotional ties to the home. They either have a tenant that's giving them motivation or it's vacant and they're not making any money on it. So they need to sell it, they need to fill it or do something with it. But right now it's just sitting there empty. And no landlord, I don't care what you tell me, no landlord wants an empty home sitting there for multiple months, especially in today's time when squatters and tenants are gaining more rights. So
Yeah.
now you said it was a recycled list. So you guys had already called on this and then
Mhm.
you went back and called on it. Why would you ever go back on a list that you've already called all the way through and gotten answers yes or no from? Why would you ever return to that list rather than pull a new list?
Yeah, so I think when people end up on a lead list, they have they've showed some sort of interest in selling this property, right? At some point, and even if we weren't the right price or it wasn't the right time for them when we talked to them, that can change really quickly, man. So every 6 months or so, well, really now I have so many leads and old leads. I'm always dipping and dodging in that old lead list, like continuously calling through it. But at a minimum, I think every 6 months you should be checking in with those old leads that went cold for whatever reason, because it's likely that they're going to want to sell that house at some point down the road if they showed some interest. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Okay.
reason behind it.
And where did you pull the list from?
So I pull all my lists from PropStream for the most part. So pull absentee owner list on PropStream in Chatham County, North Carolina. This one was, and we got a hit from this guy a few months back, like probably in January, but we weren't the right person at the time, or he wasn't quite ready to do that yet.
Okay.
We touched back in, I believe, late March, I think is when we first started talking to him. And we ended up getting it, or maybe mid March, somewhere in there. Early to mid March, we started talking to him again, and we closed it last week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay, awesome. So you guys cold called this guy in January.
Mm-hmm.
He raised his hand and said, "Yeah, I'm interested in an offer." You guys had a conversation with him, gave him an offer. Didn't work out at the time.
Yep.
One of your acquisition managers followed up in March.
Yep. Had
that conversation with him again, and then you guys you were closer to making a deal happen.
Exactly. Yep. So he was ready. I think when we first spoke with him, it was just kind of like, yeah, I probably will, but not quite ready yet. And then by the time we spoke to him again, he had decided, his mind was made up. I'm selling this property. I want to make some renovations to my house. I'm not going to actually get to doing this. It needs too much work. And it was perfect.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So you guys have that conversation with him. And then what happens after that?
Yeah. So we have the conversation. Isaac's talking to him. He lets me know that the guy wants $100,000 for it. So I'm looking at the comps. I was in Lowe's Foods, there's a grocery store in North Carolina, looking at comps, trying to figure out where we need to be on this thing, right? And I'm looking on my phone, just like on Zillow, and I see that a property, it's in a kind of a rural place in Bear Creek, North Carolina, which is like, it's not like super rural, but it's getting there. You know what I mean? But it's one of those rural areas where, you can get a house with, an acre of land or maybe some more. And if it's a nice enough house, they'll sell for $450, right? Because it's close enough to Raleigh and it's a good area of North Carolina in general. It's a good county, right? Yeah. So I saw one comp in particular that had sold for $435 that was a little bit bigger than our house and had been updated. There were some other comps. There weren't any perfect comps, right? Mm-hmm. There were no comps that were same, within 5 years, year built, same size, same, land value and all that stuff. But I saw stuff that was similar and or maybe a little bit newer or maybe a little bit bigger, right? That was selling in the 4s and high 3s. So I'm thinking, at a minimum, I think this house, I had determined that this house can probably sell for $350, right? If it's fixed up.
Okay. And this is part of it for wholesalers that are listening. There's not a perfect science to comping, especially when you get on the outskirts and the tertiary markets. Yep. It's filling in the gaps, right? It's a lot of, throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. Sometimes you're wrong. You got to wear the egg on your face. But it is what it is. You can reach out to local realtors. If you have a trusted buyer, you can ask them what their opinion of the home is. Yep. Or if you know another wholesaler who's working that area, reach out to them. Whether you guys are going to work together or not. If it's a quality wholesaler, hopefully they can give you their opinion on it. But okay, so you're taking your guess and you're saying my guesstimate is about 350 ARV. Yep. He's asking 100.
He's asking for 100,000. Yep.
All right. Okay. So he wants a little less than 33% of his deal.
Yeah, he does. And I was very I mean, you're happy to hear it, but you still have to this is the point where I'm telling Isaac, hey, he only wants 100. There's probably a deal at 100,000, but we don't want to get too excited, right? We don't want to get too excited. We don't want to get too hyped up about this, right? Because if you get too excited, you start to make that seller feel like maybe I'm asking a little too low. If you get too excited, right? It's like if you're selling a pair of sneakers online and you list it at $100 and somebody's like, I'll take it right now. Let me hold that. You're like, oh shit, I probably could have sold that for 120, right? You don't want to create that type of situation with the seller. So I told him, hey, 100's a deal, but let's try to get it at 80. Offer him 80,000. Let's see what happens, right? And he ends up getting it locked up for 82.5.
And so let's back up here. So how did you even run those numbers for you to know that, even at 100? Because I mean, 100 with 350 ARV, that sounds good, but it could be fire damage. It could be all kinds of things. So what did you know about the property? How did you feel comfortable making that offer, or even coming down to 80? What led you guys to making that offer?
Yeah, so good question, man. So I saw it as about 350, and I'm thinking, in this area, you probably do want to do about a 0.7 in terms of like what you want to go down for, right? So you want to do 0.7 minus repairs, how you want to run in these secondary, tertiary type of markets. And the property needed a bit of work. Like he said, it needed like a full remodel. He had done some work to it though, like it replaced some windows and had done some other things in the house, right? So I'm thinking still it was a 1,700 square foot house, I believe. So again, we probably I put in like 80,000 for the repairs, right? So if we go 350, and I might have even run this more conservative because the comps that we're looking at were a little higher. So I ran this at 325, I believe, because the market's a little tough. You don't want to be overshooting ARV in these situations, right? So I run this at 325 times 0.7 minus 80,000 in repairs. And that puts us at 147 sale price, right? What we can sell it for. And then I took off, I don't know. I mean, a good deal is 100 was a good deal. Don't get me wrong. Like 100's a phenomenal deal, right? But you don't want to create that feeling of they're leaving something on the table for the seller. So I told him to offer 80. We ended up locking it up at 82.5. So I'm thinking we have a, $40,000 to $60,000 deal on the table, just depending on what is going on at that house. I'm thinking, we got a pretty good deal here.
Yeah. Okay. And this is going to be, we should do a different live for this, but I do want to ask you one question because for 18 months or longer, you've been handling all those conversations.
Yeah.
And you've recently, started the trial and error, bringing on acquisition managers. And for this one, you have an acquisition manager who's on the phone with the seller. So just emotionally and mentally take me to what you're thinking, because you're not in control of that call. You've got to relay these messages and hope Isaac or whoever delivers it, the right way and can get it under contract. But how are you feeling being in the background? Because we've seen you as a one-man wholesaler. Yeah. And you're trying to scale and evolve. And so just take us into your headspace on what you're thinking while you're going through the negotiations of a deal like this.
Yeah. I mean, your initial reaction, man, is to want to say, man, let me talk to him, right? Like, let me lock this up, right? Because he sent me the message with the address, and he sent me, hey, he's asking for 100. And I'm like, okay. And I look, and I'm like, oh shit, this is probably a deal, right? Like at 100, I think our ARV is around 350, maybe 325. So I'm like, hey, and this is all over messages because he's talking to him, right? So I'm telling him, hey, I do think it's a deal at 100, but stay calm, don't jump all over it. You have to trust that the training that you guys have been through works, right? You trust in the person that you have making these calls, right? For them and for you, right? You trusting in them gives them confidence they can do it, and it gives you confidence in your training ability. So me and Isaac have gone over this scenario before. So I'm like, hey, and he's done this before, right? So I'm like, hey, look, don't jump all over it. Don't try to hammer him down right now. Just play it cool. You can never lose. Tell him, hey, we really want this at 80,000. What kind of wiggle room do you have on that price? And let's see what happens. And Isaac, being the dog that he was, I sent those messages. And later that evening, I believe, or maybe the next day. No, I think it was later that evening. The contract was in my email to sign. And the seller had already signed it. So he handled it exactly how you'd want him to, for sure.
Okay. So you have it at 82.5. You said it was a full gut, right?
Yeah, he was telling me, full rehab is what we were under the impression of. Yeah.
Okay. And then remind me what the seller's motivation was to offload this.
Yeah, so he bought this house like 5 years prior.
Okay.
And he was planning on flipping it himself. Him and his wife just kind of flipped houses here and there. And he just ran out of money to flip it. He wanted to do some renovations to his house. He didn't have the funds to finish it. And he wanted to, just wipe his hands from it, man. Wipe his hands from it. He got this house for like 25,000. So he still came up on this for sure. Yeah.
Good for him. So another question I have, do you remember if this home was under a personal name or an LLC?
Personal name.
Okay. Do you call homes that are under an LLC?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, most of the time I don't. When I generally pull my list, I do go individual owned. But if I'm driving for dollars or something or somebody brings me a house or I run across a house that is owned by an LLC, I'm not scared to make that call either.
Yeah, I think wholesalers should, because one, although this was under a personal name, this is an investor, right? Who ran out of money. I'm dispoing a couple of deals where investors have ran out of money. Yep. You should call those LLCs and anticipate that might be the problem. But if not, that's a new buyer for you. If you're calling in that neighborhood, in that area, they just bought a property in that area.
Yeah. Great for buyers.
Connect the dots. You got something there. So, okay. So
the reason why I don't call like LLCs initially is because when it's just me or I have Ahmed doing some of my cold calling and myself, and I think you're more likely to get deals from people that are individuals. And when I open it up to LLC, it's just more and more records I don't necessarily need at the moment. So I'm not saying that I never will get to them. I just always will call the individuals first because I feel like those are the better leads. Obviously, you still can get deals from LLCs. And if you have a cold caller calling in a cold call center or something, they're calling 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, and they need a lot of records, definitely put those LLCs in there so they can touch those people as well.
Yep, agreed. And a counterpoint to what you're saying is most people think that way. And I used to think that way as well.
Yeah.
So 90% of people are skipping the LLCs.
Yep.
You're going to be one of the few people that they're talking to.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now I'm about to pull LLCs next month.
It is more work. It is more work though, and probably more no's. But okay, so you get it at 82.5, needs a full rehab, and so you get it at 82.5. What happens after that?
Yeah, so the next thing is always pictures, right? I don't want to send this to anybody without any pictures. So, sometimes I feel the bug to go take pictures myself, and this is one of those deals. So I meet the seller. It's about an hour away from my house. It was on Easter, actually.
Wow.
The day before Easter, but I had my Easter lunch with my family that day. So I meet him out there at about 10 o'clock in the morning, get to the house, and it's one of those, man, I'm going to see if I can pull up these pictures while we're talking. But it's just one of those houses, man. It's a cool little house. Like it's got these, big windows, and it's an older house, but it's on a massive lot.
Yeah.
It's kind of at a major intersection, not major, but major for this area. It's like the one intersection in this town, right? But overall, when you pull up, it's like, okay, like this looks like a pretty cool house, right? Like it looks like a cool house. So it's got a little breezeway. So there's a house, there's a breezeway into the garage. So it's just like a cool the garage has a little upstairs to it where you could have a shop or a room even if you wanted to. So it's just a cool layout. So I meet the seller, shake his hand, introduce myself, tell him, hey, I'm here to take some pictures so we can, get a look at this thing and get you ready to get closed up. And what I find, and this is one of those things, man, you got to be prepared for this type of stuff. And this is why you also want to be conservative with your numbers, because I'm going to show you guys what I walked into here. And it's just like, man, you just never know what a seller has, man. You really don't.
Yeah. Take their word.
Yeah.
Trust but verify.
Trust, but definitely verify, because it could go either way. It could go either way.
It sure can. So you're pulling up pictures now?
Yeah. I'm gonna just show you guys a couple of quick pictures if I can get it pulled up of what the inside of this house looked like when we first stepped in. Yeah, this was crazy, dude. I'm thinking, it's a rehab house. Like, we got a lot to do. And this is what I walked into.
Yeah, that's a shell of a home.
Yeah. This isn't even I mean, yeah, it is a full rehab. I mean, but Jesus Christ, I mean, this is the entire. Oh man, yeah, the entire
That's,
house looks like this,
that's
bro.
full rehab plus installation,
Yeah,
sheet,
there's no drywall up. The
drywall,
kitchen is you don't even know where it is in the house because it's
yeah,
so
appliances,
yes.
counters.
Yeah, I mean, you need everything in here, right? Like, no ceiling, there's no walls. It's like, oh man, this is not just a full rehab. This is damn near building a new house,
Yeah,
right? This has been fully gutted. You know what I mean? So
you got it
I
at a
walked in.
price.
Yeah, thank God we got it at a great price, right? Thank God you run your numbers conservatively so you can kind of pad for stuff like this. So I'm like, man, um, this is gonna take probably over 100,000 to get this back into livable shape. The floors were a little shaky in some places. Like it needed a ton of work, man, a ton of work. But I take the pictures. I reassured the seller like this is more work than I thought we were going to need. You know what I mean, for sure. But let's see what we can do. I'll let you know. Pretty quickly here what's going to happen. Right?
And
He's
just so for the audience, so you want a 30-day close? Do you have an inspection period? What does that look like?
yeah, 30-day close. And I think we had a 10-day inspection period on this one. Yep.
Okay.
30-day close, 10-day inspection period.
What's the smallest inspection period you'll do?
I try not to do more than 10 days unless I go see the house before. If I go see the house before or have a buyer go look at it before, I've done 0 days before.
But why would you do 0 days?
If I know what it looks like and I have a buyer in mind or I know the price is good, I'll do 0 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Still need access to it so I can send a buyer in, but I'll do 0 days if I have to. Yeah.
Okay. So you're on a 10-day inspection. You go and look at it. It's worse than you thought, but it's still within your budget.
Yeah.
And so you've got the pictures. You've met the seller. You drive home. You have Easter lunch. And what happens after that?
Yeah. So the next day or the next Monday, I start talking to buyers, man. Call a few buyers. And one thing I like to do in these rural areas, man, some people like it, some people don't like it. I love Facebook Marketplace for rural areas of anywhere, really.
So what are you pricing it at when you're sending it to buyers? You're selling it at 70%. Now you think you have $100,000 rehab.
Probably more than that. I priced it at 140 when I sent it out.
At 140.
140. Yeah.
You're looking to make more than $50,000 on this deal.
I'm trying to hit a home run straight up on this one. Yeah, I'm trying to hit a bird.
Okay. So you start sending it out to buyers that Monday.
Yep.
You're like day 2 of your inspection period, maybe day 1.
Yep.
And, what is the buyer feedback that you're getting?
So immediate buyer feedback. A few of my you got to understand the market right now, man. So, a lot of my
And this is in March, April, so just recently.
Yep. This is recently, and the market is just so sketchy right now, man. It's really sketchy, and big rehabs like this are not popular in general anyway, right? Mm-hmm. Most of your buyers do not want to do this much work, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, if there's a lot of money on the table, maybe they'll do it, but most of your buyers don't want to do this much work. So I had a couple of people like, hey, I like it, but I don't want to do that much work right now, right? With the way the market is, I don't want to put that much time and effort into it. They're going to be paying a lot in interest over the next 6 months probably to get this done.
Let's talk about that. So things that our buyers have to keep in mind is how long their crew is going to be on that job,
mm-hmm.
the opportunity that they're going to be losing on other jobs.
Yep.
The interest rates are, what are they, like 6.5 right now?
7, but on hard money, it's going to be 15 or something crazy right now.
Exactly right. So they're getting hard money, which is what you said, like 15%.
Yep.
And then if they're not doing hard money, or even if they have to borrow money because hard money, they're like 75%, 80% all in.
Yep.
Buyers still got to make up that 20 to 25%. That's either their own money or they're using other people's money. And right now, money is expensive. So the cheapest, unless you got a really good relationship, the cheapest you can get private money right now is like at 12%.
Yep.
Plus some fees and other things. So
yep.
These buyers that if it's a 4 or 5 month rehab, other than $100K renovation, their money is getting charged as well. So for the market we're in right now, you got to have a really, really huge profits for a buyer to want to tie everything up into something like that. But okay, so that's the feedback you're getting from buyers, and what else?
Yep. So I'm also getting offers. So I'm getting a few buyers saying they're not interested just because it's relatively far from their normal market and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a lot of interest on it via Facebook Marketplace. Now, when you're using Facebook Marketplace, guys, you do have to be like aware that this is not a place for all investors. There's people that want to live in these places. There's just regular people on there, right? So you have to kind of sift through the buyers. I probably had 80 people reach out to me about this house, right? So I'm sifting through buyers all day, sending pictures, addresses, making sure it's a real person, making sure it's not a wholesaler, right? Still trying to go through that thing, right, where you're making sure this person's actually interested in buying before giving them all the information. But then I talked to a lot of people, and I was getting a lot of offers around 100, right? Like a lot of offers at 100, 105 if I were to do this, right? 140 is too high, blah, blah, blah. And then I had my guy, Victor, who ended up buying this, man. He's like, look, he calls me. He messages me. He's like, can I call you? Or he sends me his number. And I love when buyers send me their number, immediately call me, right? Those are my favorite type of people out here because it shows a level of like, I want this house, right? So I call him. He's like, dude, can I go see it tonight? I'll go see it tonight. And I'm like, okay, like, yeah, go for it. The key, I told him where the key was. Now, I'm a very trustworthy guy, guys. This may not be the smartest way to have done this, in all honesty. I'm very trustworthy until people show me something different. So I sent him to the house. I'm like, look, I do need you to send me a picture of you putting the key back. I don't know you, right? So send me a picture of you putting the key back and all that good stuff. Let me know when you're in and out. He goes in, that night, and he's like, I can do 115, right?
Okay.
Right. So he says 115. I've got it at 82.5. It's a good deal. I ask him, hey, is this cash? Is it hard money? How are you buying? He's like, look, I've got a flip closing next week, right? Or in a week and a half or something, and I'll buy it cash with the cash I'm getting from this other flip. I said, okay, that makes sense. No problem. So we negotiate a little bit, blah, blah, blah. We end up locking it in at 117.
And why even ask that buyer that question on how he's funding, how he's going to pay for it?
Because it matters, man. Like, it matters for how quickly you can close. It takes longer to do loan documents for hard money rather than cash. You can do a cash deal in a week. It could take 2 to 3 weeks to get hard money. Generally, it just depends on who their hard money lender is and what their process is like and how well they know their lender. But it's always good to know how they're paying for it, so you can tell the title company what to expect as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like to ask if it's cash or hard money at the end of the day. But yeah, he tells me it's going to be cash. Hispanic guy, man, and these are great. Hispanic buyers are great, bro. And I get a lot of them off of Facebook Marketplace, to be honest with you, in these rural areas. Yeah. They generally pay with cash. They can get it done quickly. So I lock him in at 117 the next day. So we've got a $34,500 assignment fee locked in within just a couple of days on this.
So let me ask you, you still did it relatively quickly, but your model for the most part is you want to be in and out, right? So you don't want to hold on to deals. You want to get it off your plate as quickly as possible. And some of that just goes back to your business model. You're doing every part of the business. So you don't have a lot of time to just be sitting and marketing a deal. So why didn't you just take the 100 and 105? Because that's your usual behaviors, is that you move pretty quick on this, and that's 24K, assignment fee. Why did you continue to see if you could get more?
Well, you don't want to, sometimes you have a feeling on deals, man. I know I'm looking at the numbers, like, this is worth more than that. You know what I mean? I'm looking at the numbers. I know that it's worth more than that. I get 3 offers, maybe at 100, and people are always going to try that, right? Mm-hmm. Especially on Facebook Marketplace, bro, because they think you need to sell it. People are always going to send you some lowball offers, in that arena immediately, right? You're going to get a ton of them, right? And so you just have to, and I always thank people, right? Hey, thank you for that, but I cannot take that at this moment, right? Yep. I'll let you know if that changes. And people are like, okay, well, what can you take, right? And I'm like, the asking price is one.
Oh, I hate those messages. I get messages from buyers. The first message I get from a buyer, one, they ask me, hey, do you have any offers yet? Like, what? I don't understand that question from a buyer. Like, what do you expect me to tell you?
Right. I always got offers, brother.
Yes. And then 2, I'll get, when I get this message, for me, it's a yellow flag that it might be a wholesaler. But another message I get often is, "What's the lowest you can take on it?"
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
it's been out for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna come down to
Asking right now. Yeah.
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 The lowest I can take is the asking price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I just don't understand those questions. But okay, yeah, I agree with you on that. So you get your guy in at a 35.5
Yep.
assignment fee. He said he's going to be cash, so that's great. He can close quicker than a hard money guy.
Yep.
You're not worried about any appraisals or contingencies or anything like that.
Yep.
And then you get it signed and turn into the title company.
Yep.
Are there any obstacles that you guys have to get through to get to the closing table?
The sellers were pretty chill about it. I mean, he told me he ended up telling me, "Hey, we can close April the 25th." He was like, it'll be. He tells me this initially, right? We can close April the 25th. I'll have my funds in by then. So I told the attorney that. She sets. Now, this attorney is great, acts for law in Raleigh, because she'll do transaction coordination for you, basically, for a fee, for like $300, right? So she sets the appointment with the sellers for the 25th of April. And the buyer ends up coming back to me like, "Hey, I can actually close a week early if possible." So I'm like, "Hey, great, let's do it." I tell the title company, and she's like, "Yeah, sellers took off work at the 25th, so we got to wait till the 25th. I'm like, "Okay, it is like this, right?" But yeah, the biggest hurdle was that my guy Victor just didn't he's not tech savvy at all, so he didn't know how to use his email. He wasn't responsive to Alexis, so I'm having to communicate with him pretty much about everything, right? So that was probably the biggest obstacle, was getting all the information to him and getting the documents we needed back from him and communicating, kind of being the middleman between them, because he just felt comfortable with me, right? Like he's talked to me a few times, and he's like, "I just want to work with you on this." And I'm like, "Yes, but she's the one that's doing all of this. Like, talking to her is going to be more beneficial." He's like, "Dude, I get it. I'm sure she's great, but can I please just work with you?" I'm like, "Victor, okay, buddy. Like, I got you, man." So that was probably the biggest obstacle. Other than that, man, it was smooth sailing, man. The sellers went in, signed everything. We closed. I believe we did have a little bit of a hiccup with the funds the day of closing, because he got the check into his bank account. He ended up not getting that check into his bank account. I'm glad we kept the sale date, because he got the check into his bank account, I think, on the 23rd or the 24th, and they have a hold period on it. So he couldn't send the wire until like the day of, and so we couldn't actually close till the day after. But the sellers were chill about it, even though they had driven like over an hour to get to the attorney and fill out the paperwork. She told him, handled it flawlessly, bro. She's like, "Yeah, the funds will be in. I'll cut the check, send it to you tomorrow, blah, blah, blah." They were cool with it. So, yeah, we ended up closing. He got the keys. He's working on it as we speak. And seller got their check, left us a great review, and it was a great deal, man. Paid Isaac out. I got paid out. And
I love it. So this is the importance of one, really good rapport with your buyer. Although it made your life more difficult, it showed that he had extreme trust in you.
yeah.
He didn't want to communicate with anybody else. He knew Charles could get it done.
He
And
did, bro.
two, title companies and attorneys, look at that.
Shout out to the peace sign. Yeah.
They're so important, right? You want them to be investor and wholesaler friendly and understand your operation, because that is, although they're not your company, that's front facing to your clients on both buyer and seller side.
For sure.
If your attorney was not super, accommodating to your sellers, and comforting and professional, that deal could have got flipped really quickly when they learned that, I'm driving an hour and I'm not getting my money that day.
Yeah.
That can really irritate some sellers.
Yeah.
And if you have a title company or an attorney who just is not good at relationships and not good at communicating and laying it down softly, deals blow up because of title companies and attorneys all the time.
100%, bro. 100%, bro. I think go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's my point.
Yeah. I was going to get into just like what I think the biggest thing that I probably learned, which is a question that we always get to here, but go ahead and ask it. Matter of fact, let me not step on
it. Charles, you broke the deal down from us from A to Z. You told us the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. You and your acquisition manager made $35,500.
Yep.
What was your biggest takeaway from this?
You know, Chris, that's a great question. I hadn't even thought of that to this point. but now the biggest thing I think is one, being patient when you're looking for a buyer, and understanding and being willing to help a buyer, right? Every buyer, some of your best buyers are not going to be the savviest, right? I had some savvy buyers at 100 that would have communicated and been fine. It was worth the extra 17,000, right? There was a point where Alexis like, yo, will you please tell Victor to look at the freaking and approve the HUD, the closing disclosure. I'm like, okay, Victor. I call him, hey, buddy, I need to check your email, right? There's a DocuSign in there. He's like, man, can you send it again? I don't see it. Call it, send it again real quick. Okay. You on the phone, he's like, man, I don't know. I'm like, I FaceTime him, right? I've never seen this man before in my life. I FaceTime him.
I found a buyer last week for the first time.
Hey, buddy, how you doing? Good. I'm like, hey, press the little button right there with the guy in it so you can share your screen. He's like, okay. You know, he's fucking it up completely. And then he finally gets his screen shared. I'm like, okay, you click this, you click this, you click this. You see the numbers. We good? He's like, yes, okay. Just text me how much I need to send. And I'm like, okay. And so I'm like, yo, send an email back to her saying we're good on this. And he finally sends the email back. So it's like, sometimes you're going to have to do that with the buyer. It's not just the sellers that don't know how to use, you know, the internet, the DocuSign and all this stuff. Like sometimes your best buyers are going to need a little hand holding for you to get it to the closing table. And it's worth it to do that because it builds that rapport same way. So they want to buy from you, right? He might buy another deal that I locked up last week. So it's worth it I learned that, you know, it's always worth it to not get frustrated and understand that, you know, some people just have never done it like this before, right? And this is a new experience for them, and that's perfectly fine. And I'm happy to help you do this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Benefit from it, but you know, still wasn't. I've seen people be frustrated by stuff like this on big deals, and it's like, for what, man? Like, you didn't know how to do this at some point. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I can't stand it. Do you have any questions for me, or like any top of mind questions?
I would say, bro, like, what is that? What's that bar, man? You got to give us that bar again for when you get that initial offer from your buyers, because I didn't use that bar. You hadn't told me this yet when I
I was gonna bring it up. I was gonna bring it up earlier, but you still handled it in a good way. You don't ignore lower offers, but when I get an offer, even if it's 40K under, you know, most of my offers are by email or text or sometimes phone call, but I reply and say, received, thank you. Are you able to get any closer to our asking price?
Yes. That's the one.
Yeah. And I literally have made tens of thousands of dollars by just texting that question.
Yeah.
And my dispo manager, Luke, he actually watched the live we did with Aaron. He asked that question and got a guy up 8K. Asking that question. Really, he took the knowledge, applied it, and he got a price increase.
And how much closer can you get to our asking price?
Yeah, how much closer? And I don't ask, can you get any closer? Because that's a yes or no question.
Yeah.
Very specific. How much closer?
Yeah.
You got to give me a number. You got to give me a number, even if the number is can't get any closer.
Yeah. You're not going to get away with a yes or no here.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
No. I was hoping you were going to ask me for my biggest takeaway. I figured my value was.
Oh man, that's horrible on my part, man. Chris,
you want to try?
All right, man. What was your biggest takeaway in this?
My biggest takeaway was it was a learning lesson for me because I almost never do Facebook Marketplace, and I have a deal in San Antonio that is like almost very close to your deal. It's not a shell, but it's a sub 2 investor that ran out of money. It's like 80% done. Beautiful home for what's done already. I think it's perfect for a family, who has some trade skills that can come in there and get it to the finish line. And then their PITI, their monthly payment is going to be so low on that thing. And the entry fee is $20K.
Dude, please put it on there, bro. Because I probably got, out of those 80 messages, I probably got 15 to 20 messages that said is financing available.
Yeah.
Right. Like they're always looking like people are always looking for opportunities like that, bro. So especially if it's already in pretty good shape, dude. People were asking me about this house that needs $100,000 worth. Is there financing available? Right.
I'm writing it down.
Yeah. So definitely put it on there because I get that question on anything that I post on Facebook Marketplace, bro. Somebody always asks me. A few people always ask me, "Is
Yep.
financing available?" I can put some money. How much would you take down? Like that type of stuff is very prevalent on the marketplace, bro.
Yep. I agree. Yeah, that was my takeaway. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about this still, or anything else?
Nah, man, keep dialing, man. Keep a positive spirit, keep positive energy around this thing, man. I know the market is tough right now, but the people that stick through this and can learn how to do deals through this will absolutely kill it as soon as those rates start dropping and the deal sweetens a little bit and the market sweetens a little bit. You'll be so much better. So don't give up. Keep dialing. Keep talking to buyers. Keep asking how much closer they can get to your asking price. And stay positive. I believe in every single one of you guys, man.
I totally agree. Next week we'll be back on Monday. It's the first time I've ever planned my guest a week ahead of time. So we're gonna have Caleb right on here.
Yeah,
we did a deal in Eagle Pass, a market neither of us have ever been in, and it'll be a really good one. But Charles, you know how we in the streams here lately. It's Mavs in 5, baby. Mavs in 5.
I'm thinking, what the hell is he talking about? He comes with the Mavs.
Under too young for us. It's gonna
be. Yeah, shout out to the Mavs, man. Good luck tonight. Are they playing tonight?
Yeah. 8:30.
All right, cool. Let's get it, man.
All right, bro. Later.